Hello everyone and welcome to this week's episode of the Aftermath series. Let us waste no time at all and dive right into this week's episode of Critical Role. So we start out with a rather touching moment after the aftermath of the whole situation that went down at the Overcrow Apothecary. We know that Nott sort of started the whole conflict that ended up taking place, and she felt kind of bad about causing a bit of damage and possibly botching the entire thing. But we had Yasha and Clay reassure Nott that they have bigger things to worry about, and honestly, it really wasn't that big of a mistake. Someone had to make a move, and Nott just decided to make that move first. Nott is understandably down on herself, but again, I'm sure the Mighty Nine will forgive her. But because the party botched this whole stakeout mission, they do have to worry about letting down and disappointing the Bright Queen, because, after all, the Mighty Nine did say that they would be able to execute this plan flawlessly, and without the need of any aid from the Bright Queen. So of course the Mighty Nine are going to have to try their best to make this situation resolved. And, well, the best way to do that is to follow after this drow figure that had escaped and moved northward, asking the party to bring Yasha, or as he called her, the Orphan Maker. And now it's very clear that Yasha doesn't take too kindly to that name. She sort of tried to separate that name from herself, considering it was one given to her by her tribe, and we all know how she feels about her tribe. So Orphan Maker is likely a name we won't hear too often, and if we do, it'll likely be from her enemies or people from her past. And then we had a subtle moment where we saw that Nott said that she hadn't been drinking for a while, and that she might actually start up again because she feels a bit skittish, she feels fearful. She doesn't have that courage that she had when she was perpetually drunk. Now, I think it's rather touching that she felt like she didn't need to drink anymore because she was reunited with Yasha, but now that she's moving into dangerous territory again, she feels the need that she has to pick it up once more. It's understandable, but it's definitely something that she should try not to do in the future. She needs to find the courage within herself. Nott needs to show the world that she can be confident without need of some kind of substance or outer influence. And speaking of showing things, in particular with Bo, we know that Bo was injured quite a bit during the battle at the Apothecary, and as they were traveling northward on their moorbounders, Bo had sort of subtly, or not so subtly, mentioned that she would like to rest, but she didn't want the party to know that she wanted to rest because of her injuries. She sort of just subtly hinted towards Caleb like, hey, maybe we should rest, as she was like clutching her gushing wounds and broken ribs. She didn't want to show that weakness. She didn't want to appear vulnerable, as she had stated. But Caleb, picking up on her not so subtle nature, who has no problem with showing vulnerability as he has fallen several times and taken quite a beating in combat, and honestly doesn't hold himself in too high of a regard, as sad as that sounds, it just means he has no problem either making a fool of himself or making other people think that he is vulnerable or weak, because he himself believes those things. A very small thing, but it does just show how close Bo and Caleb are becoming and how much they do actually care about each other. And now the party is making their way through the barbed fields, this sort of ground zero, final climactic battle of the Calamity, these ancient battlegrounds. Matt's narration did give off a very eerie feel with these spires and these roaming creatures and the lore behind this desolate landscape. How people were condemned to traverse these lands to prove their worth when they went against the law. And through the day's travel in this episode, we of course had to encounter some bizarre and frightening nightmare-fuel creatures that Matt so wonderfully narrated and brought to life through his mournful screaming and horrific animation. It definitely caught me off guard, as well as the other members of the party, and it was quite horrifying to behold. But it just again goes to show how talented Matthew Mercer is as a dungeon master. But taking a few steps back, they have been journeying for a few days, and even before then, the weeks that were spent with downtime and preparing the house and stuff, a lot of time has gone by since Ford had that incident where he lost his powers. And we do have to worry that every day that the party goes, specifically Ford, every day that Ford goes without moving towards his patron's goal means that he's one day closer to potentially dying and losing his powers permanently. We know that his patron holds control over his powers and potentially his life as well. Just a little happy thought to keep in mind as the days go on. But if Ford's light is snuffed out soon, at least he got the chance to kiss Jester on the cheek. Holy crap, that was so adorable. Hopefully it gets pursued more, or they talk about it, or something along those lines. And then Jester praying to the Traveler to save Ford as she cast that guiding bolt to slay the Sorrowsworn that had impaled Ford and was sucking the life out of him. But in all honesty, I am a huge fan of this slow burn relationship, potential relationship. It could just be for fun. We don't really know if it's actually going to go anywhere, but hey, we can dream. But that's not all the sauciness that happened in this episode. We did have Bo, who also took down one of these Sorrowsworn, and in doing so, she sort of flashed a look towards Yasha, sort of showing off that she took this one down. Again, just trying to impress Yasha. I don't necessarily think that Bo would pursue something with her, considering she does know that she was betrothed and married to another who has since fallen. So as aggressive as Bo is when it comes to pursuing another woman, I believe she will respect Yasha's boundaries. And currently what Bo is doing is just harmless flirting. But with the battle concluded against the Sorrowsworn, it is clear that the Barbed Fields is really making the party feel rather uneasy about their surroundings. Who knows what other horrors and monstrosities lurk within the shadows of this terrible landscape. Luckily, they only have about a half a day's travel left until they reach their destination. And Clay also came in clutch with his Speak to the Dead spell, and we got some interesting information from both the Hobgoblin and the Dragonborn. The Hobgoblin talked about keeping Oban safe and how they followed the Angel of Irons. Wouldn't it be something if the Angel of Irons relates to Yasha herself? She is a fallen Aasimar after all, and in a lot of her dreams, specifically the recent one, she is being shown with irons on her wrists, the chains and binds that hold her back. And in a previous Aftermath episode, I had sort of talked about how maybe this drow figure is potentially this demon she keeps seeing, the one that potentially had put these chains on Yasha. That might not be the case, but I do have a strong feeling that this Angel of Irons may also relate to Yasha in some way, shape, or form. And from the Dragonborn, we learned that they were just delivering a crest. Now this crest is potentially just the one of the Bright Queen that sort of allows access or just gives a sense of nobleship and shows allegiance to the Queen. Or it could be something else entirely. It could be related to this Angel of Irons. And we also did get a little bit of information on this Dragonborn's last employer. They met them in the Empire, in this sort of city where the Ravenites have sort of gathered after the fall of Draconia. It's still rather unclear if this last employer and Oban and the blonde-haired mage are connected or not connected or anything like that. All of that is still very much up in the air. I suppose we'll have to wait till next episode to get some answers. But I do believe it's safe to say we are approaching a critical point in Yasha's story arc as she is hunting down this drow who knows of her past. Why? Who is he? Hopefully next episode we'll find out. And with all of that being said, we are going to wrap up. Let me know all of your thoughts, feelings, and emotions during this episode. As always, I hope you all have an absolutely fantastic rest of your weekend, and I will see you all next week.